this is going to be an unboxing review. So basically we're unboxing a game, opening the original plastic wrap, and giving it a very superficial review. We're not going to take a lot of time to really go into all the real details, so it's not really a full review. It's basically just the gist of the game that you'll get, the impression you'll take on from just giving it a quick look. You know, play it a little bit and then maybe play it a little bit again, but not a true full review. So we'll be taking a good look, or we'll be taking a quick look at Romance of the Three Kingdoms 4, Wall of Fire for the Sega Saturn, which I have recently just opened the plastic wrap for the first time. Alright, so this will be an unboxing video and even a little bit of a first impressions. And let's see if that power's on. No, I gotta turn it on or plug it in. My organized mess is set up and ready to go, and of course this thing requires the date, and of course this is such an old game that it was new. When it was new, it was released on a system that was made in 1994, and here I am putting in the date of 2004.
Did I just say 2004? Whoops, that's 10 years ago. I meant to say 2014, not 2004.
Oh, it's 10/10. Month 10, day 10. And this will, of course, be a version of what was one of Holger's favorite video games, I believe. Oops, I went right past. Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Wasn't that one of your favorite games? Yeah. And right here, still in its original plastic wrap, with a $50 sticker on it. So it's quite expensive, but I got it because it was one of your favorite games, so I figured I'd give it a try. And as you can see in here, amongst my mess, this screen here, once it warms up, it might get up to full screen, or it might take a long time. That's one of my limitations, is one of my view screens is limited there, but as you can see now, the original plastic wrap is finally being torn away. Well, I guess it's no longer mint in box. That's okay. I mean, if I can't see what's on the inside of it, I mean, it's not much good to me. There we go. I mean, maybe some historian in the future might have been able to get some sort of a device, like a, if we ever invent anything like a tricorder, scan it, and then emulate its software, and just from the scanning of it, and somehow read everything on every page of the manual, and that would be fine, but alright. And there it is. There's not too much special. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people keep these, and some of them disappear, but a little foam rubber thing. Disc. No scratches. Romance of the Three Kingdoms 4, The Three Kingdoms, Wall of Fire for the Sega Saturn. And the manual. It's a little bit wrinkled just from the way it sets in the case, but other than that, it's in very clearly original condition. And let's see if I'll slide back in there. I always liked these cases, even though they were a little bit unnecessary space consumers. I think you already saw the packaging, did you?
Oh, yeah.
What did you think? Look interesting?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Alright. So Holger says it looks interesting. I figure it'll be interesting to try this on the Sega CD, myself being Joey, and Shadow with the camera. They're probably not as interested in it.
Well, not really.
Oh, there you go. That's just
I
nice
I
enough
am
on
not
the
a
camera
gamer.
for us. This was the packaging. So down. That was the packaging. And there's everything. And it's really not that there's anything super special in there, but whenever somebody does an unboxing, it's usually just packaging inside anyway. And this isn't so much unboxing, I mean unwrapping of the plastic, removal of the plastic wrap, and I'll set this down on the, yeah, I'll set it down on the PlayStation. And will the disc play?
Should.
I would assume so. Start application. Okay. Seems to be loading. Requires one save slot.
My Sega Saturn sometimes doesn't recognize its memory card, actually memory cartridge, or the Game Shark. I use the Game Shark. And the Game Shark is important for import converting. Yeah, but usually if I just take the cartridge out and put it back in, then it'll recognize it.
I failed!
In the off chance that confused anybody, that was actually me reading the text. That wasn't actually a in-game voice.
There's a couple things that you really need to take into account. Is the Sega Saturn controller was based on the same system that the Sega Genesis controller had really brought about. And both controllers were excellent for positioning your finger, usually over the B button, and that could quickly allow you to go to press A or C very rapidly, or up a row and X, Y, and Z. But B was always the button you hit the fastest, and B was usually the main button you'd use for just about everything. However, B, being the first letter in the word back, it was also often used as the back button when selecting things, which was a little confusing that your main button was often the cancel button. But it was actually easy to understand why a lot of games did that. B stands for back, and also it's a good way to make sure you don't just select something by accident. So that was actually a pretty standard video game language, to at least amongst Sega games, to by default use the B button as the back button. And that actually comes important to back out of your menus when it comes time to change turns. Sooner or later you'll do all that you can do, and you'll need to change turn, end your turn, and start a new turn. Allow time to pass. Maybe you'll get attacked by an enemy. Maybe you'll just end up doing more resource management, which is a very important part of a game like this. In many ways, this is kind of similar to another game, another great game, a personal favorite of mine, Star Trek: The Next Generation: Birth of the Federation. Now, this was and is a very good game. It involves a lot of strategy, and like Star Trek: The Next Generation: Birth of the Federation, you're going to have to familiarize yourself with maps and how to go into cities, select cities, or in the case of Birth of the Federation, planets. Does it look like what you're used to?
A little different.
But either way, you're going to have to be familiar with selecting a territory, managing its resources, either making it improving its economy, bringing in more technology, or even sometimes preparing to fortify it against enemy attack. It's very important in Romance of the Three Kingdoms, just as it was very important in Star Trek Birth of the Federation, to manage your space, manage your territories, and make sure you're putting your resources to well use, and protect your economy and your technology, develop your technology, and take care of your population and its morale. And you have to play around with the menus a little bit to get used to how you select a city, how you select an army, how you select whether you want to build crossbows, or if you want to build or if you want to recruit soldiers. All those are things that you'll have to play around with and get familiar with. Games like this, like Star Trek Birth of the Federation, can actually seem quite complicated when you first play the game, and then as you start playing around with it, I realize, no, actually this is pretty easy to navigate. But it might not be a very intuitive menu. Those menus very rarely are all that intuitive. So you have to play around a little bit to get used to things, to really get the hang of how to play. And of course, after the resource management comes something you'll see some clips of here for sure. As we take a look at the TV screen, we will see some examples of combat, including early on when I was first showing the game to Holger. We actually have it set up so we'll see the computer players whenever they fight each other. So we'll actually watch what becomes of their battles. And actually, when the time comes to fight your own battles, it's actually not that hard to get into. I myself am not all that familiar with the various versions of Romance of the Three Kingdoms, so we'll have to ask Holger a little bit about that. We'll see Holger's opinion on the game. So what would you say is your opinion of it?
It's pretty good.
From
a
your
lot
first,
slower, I think.
So from your first opinion, it's a bit slower than the Mega version.
Yeah.
What about any other versions that are comparable?
I'd say they're pretty much all faster pace.
So as a general rule, most of the other versions are a little more fast-paced.
Yeah.
So other than being less fast-paced, it probably has some details that some of the other versions don't have.
Graphics are all different in each one of them.
Yeah.
Similar options.
Similar options. Similar historical details, right?
Usually you always pick the same scenarios, I've noticed.
So the same scenarios are available.
Pretty much.
So I guess we'd say that this is just a different version of the game. A little bit slower paced.
Fun, but it would take a long time to really get into it, I think.
Yeah. That's the way it is with a lot of strategy games.
Oh, yeah.
Though, as Holger will point out, this game is perhaps slower than some other incarnations of Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which to me that is potentially a good thing. With a lot of strategy games as well as a lot of role-playing games, you want to take your time. Well, this was an unboxing review, so it's not really, there's no real point system. Well, I could come up with one, but it's mostly about a first impression. You take a quick look at what you got, and from there, it's mostly just about what you're going to find when you first unbox it and you start it up and play it. Does it look good? Yeah, this one looks good. Is it something you're going to pick up immediately and immediately, you know, get the best out of it? It's like, no, it's one of those strategy games where you're going to have to play it a couple times just to get the hang of it. So it looks like it's going to be a really good game, but early on you realize you're going to have to play around with it a little bit just to get the hang of it. And a lot of really good strategy games are like that. Some games really benefit from really being simple and straightforward right from the start. Other times you want complexity. And while it was stated that this seemed slower than other incarnations of Romance of the Three Kingdoms, well, again, it's a little hard to judge that back because we only played a little bit of it, and we're mostly watching the computer fight other computer players early on. Since then I've played the combat levels or combat rounds, and it actually seemed pretty straightforward and kind of fun. However, when you don't have a whole lot of invested interest in what happens, and you're sat there watching the computer play, sometimes that can seem to go on and on. So it's a little hard to judge there as well too. But it looks like a good game. Perhaps in the future I'll get my hands on another copy of the game. It appears to be available on for download with the Nintendo Wii U as the Super Nintendo version of the game. So perhaps I'll try that and compare it someday. It has been compared to the Amiga version of the game, which I believe was Romance of the Three Kingdoms 3, not Romance of the Three Kingdoms 4, that Holger was referring to and comparing it to. But I'm not really sure. I'm not completely sure about that. Nonetheless, it looks like this is a good game. I can't really say how as I play it more. At this time, I cannot say for sure what I'm going to think of the game after I've played it a lot more. But it looks like it'll be fun. It looks like it'll be an enjoyable game with a lot of replay value. And if you don't mind a certain amount of complexity that comes from a lot of really good strategy games, if you don't mind taking a little bit of time to figure out the ins and outs of how to play the game, then I think it's a game that you could pick up and play fairly easily, just not fairly quickly. As you pick up the little details on how you play and what does what and how to get into which option, you'll start to realize it's not that hard. A lot of great strategy games have a certain level of complexity that makes them a little less intuitive to play on the first try. But many of those games also turn out to be really good once you learn basically the language of how to control the game menus and what you need to do, what you need to check out, and what's the most important to keep track of. So I'll rate this game as good, a bit complex to pick up on the first try, but ultimately a good game worth playing around with and getting used to. Or appearing to be worth getting used to, as I've only just begun to get used to it.
That's the price sticker that was on the plastic wrap that was on my copy of Romance of the Three Kingdoms 4, Wall of Fire for the Sega Saturn. And it also has this little plastic thing here that the stores can use to, well, to hang it. To hang it on those little rods that they hang merchandise like video games on.
And now that video is over. Did you happen to catch the point in the video where I accidentally say Sega CD instead of Sega Saturn? If you did, you won the game. And your prize is absolutely nothing. But perhaps I will, perhaps I'll unbox something else in the future. Do another unboxing review. It probably wasn't that interesting, but if you're curious about the game that I just unboxed, or really unwrapped for the first time, took it out of the plastic wrap, then there might be something interesting in the video for you. And perhaps I'll open this thing up soon. This could be interesting. It does have interesting box art on it. Of course, I have lots of stuff around here with interesting box art on it. Well, hopefully this was interesting. If not, hopefully I'll come up with something interesting in the future.